5 signs from the universe that true love is approaching. Carl Jung. There is a moment before love arrives that feels strange, almost unsettling. Nothing dramatic happens on the surface, yet something deep inside begins to shift. You may not meet anyone new. You may not receive a message. But your inner world starts rearranging itself, quietly, precisely, and with purpose. Carl Jung believed that love does not appear by chance. It arrives when the psyche is ready to encounter it. And before that encounter happens, life sends signals, not from the outside, but from within. In this video, you will discover 5 psychological signs that true love is approaching. Not romantic fantasies, not spiritual cliches, but deep, observable changes in your inner structure. The kind Jung spent his life studying. Stay until the end, because the final sign reveals why love often comes only after everything seems to slow down. Sign 1. Love begins to align with life. The first sign that true love is approaching does not arrive as a dramatic event. It appears quietly, through subtle shifts in how life responds to you. You begin noticing meaningful coincidences, conversations that arrive at the right moment, encounters that feel strangely timed, and situations that answer inner questions you never voiced aloud. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity. Not coincidence in the ordinary sense, but a meaningful alignment between the inner world and outer reality. According to Jung, synchronicity appears when the psyche reaches a state of readiness, when unconscious patterns begin to harmonize with conscious awareness. At this stage, you are not manifesting love through effort or intention. You are aligning with it psychologically. Your inner conflicts soften. Old contradictions lose their grip. The nervous system relaxes just enough for perception to sharpen. Life no longer feels chaotic. It begins to feel responsive. This alignment is not mystical. It is structural. When the inner world becomes more integrated, reality reflects that integration back. You notice signs not because the universe suddenly speaks louder, but because your mind is finally quiet enough to recognize meaning. Many people overlook this sign because it does not feel romantic. There may be no new person yet, no dramatic emotional shift, just a growing sense that things are falling into place internally. Jung believed this was essential. Love cannot arrive into psychological disorder. It requires coherence. Synchronicities increase when you are no longer forcing outcomes. When expectation loosens, awareness expands. You stop chasing meaning and begin noticing it. And this is precisely when love approaches, not as an interruption, but as a continuation of alignment already in motion. True love does not break into your life. It fits into it. Sign 2. The past loses its emotional grip. The second sign that true love is approaching is deeply internal and often overlooked. Old relationships begin to lose their emotional charge. Memories that once triggered pain, longing, anger, or regret now feel neutral. You can think about the past without being pulled back into it. This shift is subtle, but profound. You are not suppressing emotion, and you are not forcing forgiveness. Instead, the psyche has finished processing what once remained unresolved. Carl Jung believed that love becomes possible only after projections dissolve. As long as emotional energy is tied to the past, the unconscious remains occupied. When attachments release, they do so quietly. There is no dramatic closure, no final conversation, no symbolic ending. You simply notice that the story no longer lives inside you. The emotional weight fades, and with it, the need to revisit what has already ended. This state is often misunderstood. Some people fear that emotional neutrality means they have become cold or detached. In Jungian psychology, the opposite is true. Emotional neutrality signals integration. It means the experience has been fully absorbed into the personality rather than split off or denied. As long as unresolved attachment exists, love cannot arrive clearly. New connections become contaminated by old expectations, fears, and unconscious comparisons. You may think you are open, but part of you is still turned backward. Love requires presence, and presence cannot coexist with unresolved emotional debt. When the past releases you, something essential happens. Inner space opens. Not emptiness, but availability. You no longer seek to repair what has already broken. You are no longer emotionally loyal to old wounds. This is when love becomes possible, not as repetition, but as something new. The psyche is no longer anchored to what was. It is finally free to meet what is. Sign 3. You feel whole without searching. The third sign that true love is approaching is paradoxical. You stop searching for it. The constant inner movement toward love, the longing, the chasing, the subtle emotional reach begins to fade. Not because you gave up, but because the need itself dissolves. You no longer feel incomplete. There is no quiet anxiety pushing you to be seen, chosen, or validated. Emotional hunger softens. You still desire connection, but it is no longer urgent. Love stops feeling like a solution to something missing. Carl Jung understood this moment as essential. As long as love is pursued to fill a void, it cannot arrive in a healthy form. What comes instead is dependency, projection, or idealization. True love requires two whole selves, not one searching for completion in another. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means inner stability. Your sense of self no longer depends on being mirrored by someone else. You feel grounded in who you are, even in silence, even alone. And from this state, relating becomes possible without fear. This is often the moment when people become confused. They think love is drifting away because the emotional intensity has dropped. In reality, intensity has been replaced by readiness. Jung believed that maturity begins when desire is no longer driven by lack. When you feel whole, love changes its meaning. It is no longer something to obtain. It becomes something to share. You stop reaching outward to be saved and begin standing inwardly complete. This is why love often arrives when you least expect it. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped searching. And in that stillness, something real can finally recognize you. Sign 4. Your standards naturally rise. The fourth sign that true love is approaching shows itself through a quiet change in tolerance. You stop accepting mixed signals, emotional inconsistency, and unclear intentions. What once felt exciting or intense now feels draining. Your nervous system no longer mistakes chaos for chemistry. This shift does not come from rules or ultimatums. It happens naturally. Your boundaries become clearer without effort. You simply recognize what aligns with you and what does not. Carl Jung associated this moment with psychological maturity, the ability to remain connected to oneself while relating to others. Many people fear that higher standards will isolate them. They believe love requires compromise at any cost. Jung saw it differently. When standards rise, it is not arrogance, it is self-respect becoming embodied. You are no longer negotiating your worth to maintain connection. As inner integration deepens, tolerance for self-betrayal disappears. You notice when communication lacks honesty. You feel discomfort when actions do not match words. And instead of explaining, proving, or waiting, You step back, not to punish, but to protect clarity. This is a decisive moment. Love cannot grow where boundaries are absent. When standards are low, relationships form around confusion and imbalance. When standards rise, only what is real remains. What cannot meet you at this level simply fades away. Importantly, this change feels calm. There is no anger, no superiority, no need to convince anyone. You are not closing your heart. You are opening it selectively. Jung believed that individuation requires discernment, the ability to say yes without losing the self, and no without guilt. Love approaches when you stop bargaining with your value, not because you demand perfection, but because you finally honor what you need to remain whole. And from that place, love no longer feels uncertain. It feels clear. Sign 5. Life slows you down on purpose. The fifth sign that true love is approaching often feels confusing at first. Life begins to slow down. Momentum breaks. Plans fall apart. What once moved easily now meets delay, silence, or pause. Instead of progress, you encounter stillness. Most people interpret this as a setback. They believe life is blocking them, punishing them, or taking something away. Carl Jung understood this phase very differently. He believed that transformation often arrives through waiting, not action. When life slows you down, it creates space. Space for reflection. Space for listening. Space for unconscious material to reorganize itself. Constant movement keeps the psyche distracted. Stillness allows it to integrate. At this stage, urgency fades. You are no longer rushing toward outcomes or forcing direction. You begin to notice your inner world more clearly. Your needs, your patterns, your emotional rhythms. What once felt empty now feels intentional. This pause is not random. True love cannot enter a life crowded with noise, unresolved emotion, and constant striving. It requires room, not externally, but internally. The slowing down clears that room. Many people miss this sign because it feels uncomfortable. They try to escape it by staying busy, distracting themselves, or rushing into new connections. But love does not arrive through avoidance. It arrives through presence. Waiting, in Jungian terms, is not passivity. It is preparation. The psyche uses stillness to realign itself with what truly belongs. When life slows you down, it may not be delaying love. It may be making sure you can receive it without distortion. True love enters when the soul finally has space, not when everything is moving fast, but when everything becomes quiet enough to hear what matters. Final transformation. When love is no longer searched, but met. If you recognized yourself in these signs, something important is already happening. Love is not approaching because you learned the right strategy, said the right words, or waited long enough. It is approaching because your inner world has changed its structure. Alignment replaces chaos. The past loosens its grip. Wholeness replaces hunger. Self-respect becomes natural. And stillness creates space. This is not coincidence. It is psychological readiness. Carl Jung believed that the outer world responds to the state of the inner one. When the psyche becomes integrated, life reorganizes itself accordingly. Love does not arrive as rescue, distraction, or completion. It arrives as recognition. At this stage, love no longer needs to be chased. It no longer has to be imagined, manifested, or forced. It appears because there is finally room for it to exist without distortion. This is the transformation most people miss. They look for signs outside themselves, while the real signals are internal. Love comes when you stop negotiating with your worth, stop repeating the past, and stop trying to be chosen. You do not attract love by becoming more appealing. You meet it by becoming more whole. If life feels quieter right now, trust it. If things are slowing down, allow it. If you feel less desperate and more grounded, honor it. Love is not late. It is precise. And when it arrives, it will not feel like chaos or obsession. It will feel like something that belongs, because by then, you do too.